The 2015-2017 KTM 690 Duke ABS. Each version of the Duke since 1994 shed more and more of its vestigial dirt bike features, and this latest version is a straight-up street bike. This ride highlights the no-frills pragmatism of the designers with minimal body paneling, exposed frame and afterthought-class rear mudguard. The result is an unimpeded view of the wheels, frame and engine that leaves little to the imagination, and plenty of easy access for maintenance and repairs. Made since 2012, the Duke IV represents the current branch of the family tree, with the 690 Duke serving as the mid-range displacement sibling. Quick and light, the 690 Duke is intended for the entry-level street bike market. Continue reading for my review of the KTM 690 Duke. Design. Our Austrian buddies at KTM have been producing the Duke model family for over 2 decades now. The original Duke, or Duke I, first of its name, was built as an off-road machine, and it evolved into the bare bike street fighter that we know today. On the go, the seat position feels high and unusually far forward, leaving with a feeling of being perched on the bike rather than seated in it, but the seat and pillion pad covering has a comfortable and grippy texture that prevents the unwanted, and sometimes alarming, sliding around of your posterior during maneuvers. This is particularly nice given the tendency of the Duke to reward riders with a moonshot when they get a little twisty with the throttle. Chassis. The chrome molybdenum steel frame weighs in at an impossibly light 20 pounds, and the die-cast swingarm adds a mere 9 pounds to it. In spite of this feather light weight, the frame manages to deliver the requisite amount of torsional rigidity to keep the tracking stable and predictable. KTM used WP suspension products fore and aft. In spite of this feather light weight, the frame manages to deliver the requisite amount of torsional rigidity to keep the tracking stable and predictable. KTM used WP suspension products fore and aft. The 43mm inverted front forks may be a tad overkill for a bike this small and light, but they help carry the stiffness and stability of the frame all the way to the front tire. Nobody could ever accuse them of being the weak link, to be sure. A pivot arm articulated, pressurized gas WP monoshock absorbs the forces on the swingarm, and it's tucked away out of sight, leaving the tail end looking modern and clean. Top-of-the-line Brembo brakes work with the 320mm single front brake disc and 240mm rear disc under the ever-vigilant, unless switched-off Bosch 9M Plus, dual-channel ABS system. While I personally prefer to see dual brakes up front, the disc diameter and caliper are more than enough to control the bike. At least once I've seen the rear end kite unintentionally on rider when he grabbed a fistful of front brake at speed, so the lack of dual brakes is no problem at all with a sled this light. Seat height is rather tall at 34 inches unladen, and while there is no doubt that it leaves you with a commanding view of your immediate surrounds in traffic, shorter riders will certainly be on their tippy toes when stopped, but considering its off-road origins, the seat height is on par. Drivetrain. KTM used the latest version of its 690cc LC4 engine for the mill. This liquid-cooled, single-cylinder engine cranks out an impressive 69.1 horsepower, but not much in the way of torque. You really have to wind it up to get usable power out of it, but that shouldn't be a surprise given the low rotating mass of this engine. You really have to wind it up to get usable power out of it, but that shouldn't be a surprise given the low rotating mass of this engine. Don't take this to mean the bike is underpowered. If you grab a fistful of throttle and twist it, you will pull a moonshot whether you intended to or not. Consider yourself warned. Part of this power is due to the high 12.6:1 compression ratio, yep, super unleaded country, and electronic fuel injection system, but that ain't all. The twin ignition system controls the spark plugs through individual ignition mapping, and the ride-by-wire system controls the throttle through a combination of rider input and engine needs, both of which serve to make the power curve smooth and predictable. One-lung engines are notorious for teeth-rattling vibration, but a balancer shaft geared to the crank mitigates much of the shake, rattle and roll to keep the vibration at a reasonable, tolerable level. The 6-speed transmission and chain drive send power to the rear hoop with an APTC clutch as the middleman between the chain and engine. This oil-bathed, hydraulically actuated clutch is what racers call a slipper clutch, and it allows a certain amount of slip to prevent rear wheel hop when downshifting and engine braking into a corner entry. He said, "Too light for me by far. The low mass makes it really quick and responsive to the throttle, good, as well as crosswinds, not so good. Plus, it is even less suited for prolonged interstate speeds than my Sportster, which is a deal breaker for me. Having said that, around town this bike is a hoot, and it will go around the world on 3 tablespoons of gas. That has to be worth something to a good number of potential buyers," she said. My wife and fellow rider, Alan Hinton, says, as KTM's first street bike, you can still see the racing heritage in it, very noticeable, for example, in the suspension travel. With a single, 690cc cylinder, I was a bit skeptical. Okay, I might have snickered a little bit, but shame on me. That 5,000 revolutions per minute in 6th gear will let you cruise at about 75 miles per hour, and it is fun on twisty roads. Overall, the gearing seems well suited to daily commutes to campus or to work. It's just a tad too big for real fuel economy when looking at it as a commuter, especially with the 300 to 500cc market having greatly expanded in recent years. Specifications.
If you liked this video, please share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.